It's a privilege to take part in this wonderful conference. I have learned a lot from very inspiring talks, and am truly grateful to all the presenters, and also, of course, to Sveva and Yanis. I think it is a really good idea to open the door wide rather than confine the conference to a narrow niche. Taking advantage of this open-mindedness, I would like to draw your attention to the linguistic landscape. If we open our eyes, then we see that the linguistic landscape is all around us. And it reminds us of something that we all know, but which is nevertheless, again and again, worth considering, namely the overwhelming importance of writing in the societies that we live in. Linguistic landscape has been studied in various ways, and it can be, because it can be extremely complex, which I will show you in a second. Accordingly, many different definitions of what is linguistic landscape have been proposed, and this is in a research field still evolving. New definitions will come, but for this talk and generally also, I think the definition first proposed by Landry and Boris is still very useful, and I'll just stick to that. They said that the linguistic landscape is visibility and salience of languages on public and commercial signs in a given territory or region. As I just said, other definitions are conceivable, but this will do for today's presentation. And to get a grip on what I just said can be very complex indeed. If you can deal with this and tell me what it is about and where and so forth, then you're already an advanced student of linguistic landscape. It can be studied from various points of view. You can look at aesthetics. Is it beautiful or ugly? Linguistics, are words and grammar used correctly? Are there any mistakes? Geolinguistic is the linguistic landscape, what you would expect of the region where you happen to be. Sociolinguistic, what languages and varieties are being used. Political, do messages on display carry political contents? Is the script ideologically loaded, perhaps? Economic, who pays for and who benefits of inscriptions in the public sphere? Historical, since when have signs been where they are and why? Can you imagine a city that has an Assassin's Street? Here in Venice, Rio Terra dei Assassini, you can find it in the linguistic landscape, and many others. What I will do now is give you a guided tour through linguistic landscape, and I will try to convince you that in order to analyze it, we need certain parameters. And my suggestion is, to this end, use 8 WH questions. These are the WH questions we can apply when we study a particular linguistic landscape wherever we are, unless on the high seas or hiding in the jungle. Linguistic landscape is everywhere. So the first one is who writes, which is important to know when we want to analyze this. Where, when, what is being written, in which language or languages, addressed to whom, why, that is to what end, and then with whose permission. Why this may be relevant, you will find out in a while. Before we go on a tour, I just want to mention one more thing, namely that the linguistic landscape is part of a visibility regime. That is, what we see and what we don't see. The latter should not be forgotten if we really want to understand what linguistic landscape is all about. So let me start here with an example of linguistic landscape in the proper sense of the word. Most linguistic landscapes are actually cityscapes, but this one just happens to be in a very beautiful landscape in the outskirts of Kyoto in Japan, in the Kiyomizu temple. When was it? It was at the end of the year 2022. What the Chinese character depicted here has been chosen by this temple, the Kiyomizu temple, as the character of the year, a practice that they have started a few years ago, and they chose this one, Sen or Ikusa, which means war, battle. In which language? It's in Kyoto, obviously Japanese, but it can be read in Chinese as well. Addressed to whom? To the general public. Why? Well, that is for you to answer, and you will not find it difficult to come up with a proper answer here. With whose permission? Well, in the case at hand, with the permission of the Kiyomizu temple in Kyoto. Next slide, a different part of the world. Who is writing? A private person. Where? In Amsterdam. When? Same time, like the previous one. What is it about? COVID-19. Which language? Well, in this case, that happens to be indefinite. Could be various languages. We could say it's Dutch, but that is, as I said, it's indefinite. To whom? To everyone. Why? You know the answer. With whose permission? That is to be found out. Is there a regulation in the Netherlands or in the city of Amsterdam that allows or regulates what may be displayed in public? Still in the Netherlands, who is writing? City administration in The Hague, 2020, 2022. What? Instruction to guide behavior. Language, in this case, English and Dutch. To whom? To passengers. And why? Health protection, with whose permission? The city of The Hague. Going east a little bit, who was writing here? African artists in Berlin and in cyberspace, the same message. When? Also 2022. What publicity? What language? English only. To whom? The general public. To what end? To attract visitors, customers, with whose permission? To be determined. On the other side of the slide, still in The Hague, who is writing a neighborhood in The Hague, as I just said. What? Safety instructions, which language? Dutch only. Why? To fight the pandemic, with whose permission? That of the neighborhood association. Moving closer to here, here we have on the left-hand side, a bank, on the right-hand side, a shop, where in Tuscany, also in 2022, what about health safety? Which language? Italian only. To whom? To customers. Whose permission? The bank on the left-hand side, shop owner on the right-hand side. Now we're going further afield. Who is writing here on the left-hand side? The Ministry of Health, the Japanese Ministry of Health, actually, where Tokyo Airport, when in 23, what instruction, in which language? Here we have on this poster, Japanese, English, Chinese, and Korean, because this is a fairly international environment. Addressed to whom? To passengers. To what end? Instructions, whose permission? The Japanese government's. On the right-hand side, a poster in a hospital that caters, among others, to foreigners. St. Luke's Hospital in Tokyo, where Tokyo, when 2023, what instructions? Why? To boost the morale. With whose permission? The hospital's permission, of course. Back in Italy, actually here in Venice is where we are. Who is writing? Who are writing? Kindergarten teachers. Where here in Venice, this was in 2020. What is it about? It's about a protest. Which language? In Italian. What it says is we are not trash, we are teachers. Addressed to whom? To the government. Why? To get a raise. With whose permission? Again, this has to be determined to what extent the city of Venice regulates written utterances in the public sphere. From here, we go to yet a very different place. Where are we? Who is writing? Tongji University, where in Shanghai, when this was in 2019. What is it about? Now, this is an interesting message. These are the 12 core socialist values of China. In what language? Chinese, of course. Addressed to whom? To students. Why? Political education, which is an occupation by some governments, and not or less so of others, in any event, a matter of interest to study. Whose permission? We can be sure the permission of the state of China, as well as of the university, the Tongzhi University. Again, a different part of the world. Who is writing the city, the municipal administration, where in Jerusalem, when in 2022, what is it? It's a street sign. In what language? Here we have three: Hebrew, Arabic, and English. And mind you, in the event, the order is of some significance. To whom is it addressed? To the general public. Why? To represent all relevant population groups, or considered relevant, with whose permission? That of the city. Here we are again in a very different part of the world. Who is writing? The city of Lisbon, where in Portugal, when 2016, what is it? A public commitment. Which languages? Many. I haven't counted them, and probably couldn't, because it goes on further to the left. To whom is it addressed? To citizens and to foreigners. Why? To promote tolerance, symbolized by multilingualism. Whose permission? That of the city. Another example of multiplicity. Who is writing? A public transport system where in Berlin, when 2023, what is it about? Wanting to free riders to pay their fee. Which languages? Well, many again. If you're interested, it's German, Dutch, English, French, Italian, Spanish, Greek, Turkish, Russian. Why? Not really to promote multilingualism, but rather to make them pay the fare they are due. Whose permission? The cities and presumably the companies. Back in Italy, who writes? Hard to say. Maybe alle, or could be. Where? Here in Venice. When? Hard to determine. What is it? A plea? A declaration of love? In what language? Italian of a kind. If you look at this, for example, to say la vita mia, the Accademia della Crusca wouldn't accept that as Italian, but it is. In what language? Yeah, Italian. Addressed to whom? To Elisa. Why? To get her back. With whose permission? Clearly without, as many acts of graffiti, which actually in many countries are felonious transgressions. And finally, what I promised with the title of my presentation, I'm coming to the truth. I don't know whether you can read it here, so let me zoom in. Veritas, the truth, is part of the linguistic landscape in Venice. If you open your eyes, you will see it all around you. For example, here, which is not too far from where you are, and it tells you something about the truth in Venice. Whoops, what happened now? Yeah, okay. Veritas means Venezia energia, risorse idriche, territoris, ambiente, servizi. So energy, water resources, territory, environment, and services. That is what truth is about in the linguistic landscape of Venice. So with this walk through the linguistic landscape, I hope to have convinced you that these parameters are worthwhile to pursuing and to using when analyzing the linguistic landscape wherever you are. And with this, time is out, and I thank you for having the patience and give you another piece of linguistic landscape in the proper sense of the word. Thank you very much.
Questions? So I'm sure many people are wondering why in your parameters you don't use the how all of this is done.
Yes, I have to admit that I left this out because it was just be too much to deal with. It is, I admit, a very important additional point, which might be added to the list. And this particular example illustrates that indeed we are dealing with very many different means of putting the linguistic landscape in place. Thank you.
Questions?